I'm Lisa Parenteau, and I'd like to welcome you to Lifting Others as We Rise, the podcast where we dive into the world of real estate and the power of positive thinking. In each episode, we're going to bring you inspiring conversations with real estate professionals and other thought leaders who have really harnessed the power of lifting others up along their journeys. So let's get ready to elevate our mindset. Lifting Others as We Rise podcast, where inspiration is a catalyst for action. Let's go. Welcome to Lifting Others as We Rise podcast. I am Lisa Parenteau, realtor, team leader, CRS, broker associate, but most importantly, Glamma to Eloise Ann, who is 4.5 going on 17 here on beautiful Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And I'm thrilled to welcome you to this episode of our podcast. I know you're going to enjoy this. I can't wait to dig in. There's so much about my guest, Cyleste, today that I want to learn more about and kind of share with her. But wherever you are, get comfy, settle in, whether you're at the gym or you're home, grab a cup of tea, or if you're in your car. My intention, as always, is to connect with leaders in the real estate field, but to really talk about things that are inspiring to them, discover inspiration and catalysts for change in the stories of them. So today, my special guest is Cyleste McClintock Goodson, and I'm super excited to welcome Cyleste. We've only had a couple of minutes to talk. I know that Cyleste is a native of Florida, so she is a native Floridian. I commented about how amazing her hair looks for being somewhere so humid. Listeners cannot see that, but anyone watching the podcast on YouTube can, because living in a humid environment has got to be really a challenge, but very fabulous for your skin. So that part is good for sure. But also just the constant presence of quick rain showers has got to be something else. So Cyleste actually comes to us from another career, as so often we are. And that other career was working in nursing, I believe in more of a long-term care situation, but we'll learn a little bit more about that. But she's been in real estate for a couple of years now and had an amazing transition. She works a lot with military families, which is really a gift and a real service, and first responders. So that is also, thank you for that service in advance, because I know that can be stressful for those in those categories, as the dollar figures and making all of that come together and work is a lot more difficult than maybe in my market, where a lot of it is luxury and second homes, and it's the concerns, there are real concerns, but the concerns are very different. And you also have a VA mortgage specialist designation. So I'm interested to hear more about that. But you have an amazing career. Looking at your Facebook, my God, you're closing something like every week, just moving and shaking down there in Lakeland. Welcome, welcome, Cyleste.
Well, thank you. It's such a pleasure to make that connection and to see you and to share how we can add value to others.
Yeah, for sure. So I know in my career, I actually started selling real estate back in the 90s, but I only did it for 5 years. It looks like I've been licensed in 1993. I was licensed in 1993, but I have not been an active realtor all that time. I was working for about 10 years in a modality called compassionate touch. In massage therapy, we trained elders in facility care and people in end-of-life care. So it was working with a lot of people and their families where the elder had dementia and they were in hospice care or in long-term care. And we did a lot of our work in Florida, which was very obvious and a variety of reasons. But I understand that you did work in that capacity in some ways. Tell us a little bit about your background in nursing and long-term care. I'd love to hear it at the table with that.
Initially, I worked at the local hospital, like most of us do. You want to be that Florence Nightingale of your own era, and you want to make an impact in your world. And I was very fortunate to work here. I did a lot of labor and delivery, mother baby, and nursery, and it was a joy. Most of the time, it was happy. When the good times were good, they were great, and when the bad times were bad, they were the worst. And so as time went on, I actually transitioned to doing hospice in homes. And I did some admissions at the hospital, but then I would follow those people to their home. And that eventually took my heart, because I realized there that you either have a heart to serve or you don't. And So my heart went with that. I left the hospital. I did hospice and home care for the next 8 or 9 years. So I had quite a journey. And I always say that nursing was a vehicle. It took me places that I otherwise couldn't have gone. And one of those places was the home environment. And that's when you realize that you are a guest in someone's home and it's an honor for them to allow you to be there. So it was great. That's kind of what was the segue
Yeah, yeah.
to
So tell me about
real
that
estate.
pivot. Yeah, that's a big left turn. I know that from a purpose standpoint and Dharma, I think you're correct. There are not working with dying people is not something that most people can do. Some of us have some space, and it's probably from something that happened in our family of origin and growing up, and we could share about that, a little bit offline. But there are ways that we are more equipped maybe than others to deal with that. And so kind of pivoting from that world of great presence, right? Because that takes a great skill of simply being present. You ain't gonna fix that, right? And so how did that, tell me about that pivot. What were the forces that were around that then brought you to where you are today?
As in the home environment, you walk in pretty much with your limited amount of supplies, and the rest of it is up to you what you're doing as far as treatment or whatever. And I was hurt in the home environment physically because I'm not a very large person. I'm like 5'2". And so a lot of what you do has to do with just treatments or positioning or that sort of thing. And I had an injury. And through that time, I was having physical therapy daily, and my husband, who's my largest cheerleader in the whole world, he says to me, I really think, and we'd talked about it before, but I was like, I'm a nurse. I'm just a nurse. And so he's like, no, but I know you'd be really good at that. Have you ever thought about it? So I told him, of course, no. And through I believe I had 3 separate physical therapy sessions. They were back to back. And during that time, I thought, you know what? He's right. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get what you got. I would get injured again. And the surgeon actually confirmed that and said that he thought that it was a better idea that I not go back to nursing.
Wow, so that must have been a psychic bittersweet change, but a relief maybe somewhere where you knew you were, if you had kept up, you may have caused yourself some more physical harm.
Yeah, and so when the surgeon finally said that, I'd already decided that I was going to make the change. I just didn't know what that looked like
Mhm.
because my sphere of influence, as we usually draw on that to start this type of a business. And so my sphere of influence was not exactly prime. I couldn't say, hey, you want to sell your house? It's the last thing on people's mind.
Wow.
So basically, at that point, I studied, loved, became licensed, and made the transition. It was a true leap of faith because, like I said, my sphere of influence was very limited. So, both my sons had actually left in those few months, left and gone into the military. My husband, yes. And I was like, they took
Wow.
my heart. They took my heart with them when they left. And my husband was Air Force. So here we were now with my sons and their friends, and some of them are coming back home. And so it was almost as if fate led me that direction because then I had a different viewpoint of what they'd gone through, the challenges, the duty station changes, leaving all their friends and going to someplace new and starting all over. And so all of a sudden, I just kind of picked up that baton and ran with it, grateful to help those people because sometimes they're first time home buyers and sometimes they're just thrust into a new zip code and they really didn't have a choice in it. And
Correct.
somebody who understands that and can be compassionate to it and at the same time take the stress out of it for somebody else. I mean, it gave me the opportunity to serve people just in a different way.
That is so beautiful because it is a special understanding when they're uprooted. We have a Joint Base Cape Cod here, right? And what I have observed, and I've worked with a couple of families, of course, sold and helped them buy, and then some of them have come back, but it's every 2 years. And so they don't have an opportunity to put down roots. Human nature wants us to put down roots, especially if we have children. We're kind of putting down roots, and then to upend that. But also to not, the one thing that I found, and maybe this touches on some of that work that you did with hospice, they're not able to allow themselves to get really grounded in that place because it's so temporary, right? It's not what
Right.
we think of as home. And yeah, that's got to be a whole element of it as well, which your hospice work, I think, probably helped inform.
Yeah. The other
So,
thing too, because they don't, many times they don't have an opportunity to say, well, I don't want to go there. I'd rather go there. And being able to help them accept, they feel like their options were limited. But then I think that providing them with options, making sure that from the standpoint of, yes, we're doing a transaction, but give them as many options as makes them feel like they're more in control.
absolutely. I love that insight. That is really super insightful because it is similar to people who are aging out of their home. They typically don't have a whole lot of choice. And so to continue to give them as many choices as they can handle, knowing that some of that is also adding stress. So being experienced enough to be able to see those things and to be able to kind of intervene. Was there a piece of advice that you were given when you were considering making that transition, making that shift, or a piece of advice around digging into that community that really created for yourself and then nurtured?
In retrospect, I think it was almost divine. I didn't really intend to create that environment. It just kind of happened organically, and I'm grateful for it because I had no idea where my audience, what audience would I have? Because I can't really market to my patients. So when that occurred, I was completely grateful. Yeah, you share with everyone, like, I'm getting a license, I'm going to be a realtor. And then who's going to pick that up? And especially when you're new, again, you don't know what you don't know. And it's who's going to need what I have to offer. And that made it a little bit daunting, the task of who's my influence? Who's
Hmm.
going to be influenced by me?
And
And
what's going to be my value add? I mean, that's what we're always asked to talk about. What's our differentiator? Not even differentiator from a marketing perspective, but I know that you believe, as I do, what is our value add? What can we actually, how can we support? What's our group that we can support? And how can we get better at offering that support for sure? Did
right.
you have a mentor who kind of helped with that journey?
I did not. I did not. I'm very careful about who I let speak into my life. And I think that I'm unique in that way because there were a lot of people who suggested that you have a coach or they suggested different training methods or that sort of thing. And I always thought you can't teach. You either have a spirit of excellence about you and you do things with all of your heart, or you can pattern yourself and your life after someone else, but I didn't really want to open up a can of real estate. I wanted to be authentic and I wanted to serve people. And you can't get that in a training manual. And so I I purposefully didn't read some of the books that people told me to read. I thought, you know what? I'm going to be who God created me to be in this role, just like in nursing, just like in any other thing. So I think that in terms of how did I develop in this role, I would always read things that were motivational, but not specific to real estate
Right.
because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to remain Celeste and serve, but just in a different capacity. It wasn't that nursing role anymore, but I'm still going to serve people and do it with all my heart.
So yeah, I should have been more specific about not a real estate mentor. Is there a thought leader, a motivator? Is there something where you draw your inspiration to blaze your own trail?
Well, I have a very deep faith that's very important to me. I do value my family and how I'm able to serve them. And keeping grounded, being grounded all the time and being aware, just aware of your goals, your personal goals, who you are, how it affects people around you. I think that's probably been the biggest rudder in this ship is just that's what keeps you going in the right direction. Just being mindful.
I love that talking about kind of the authenticity. So many of my guests, that is something that continues to become clearer and that people gain more clarity on. I just saw Simon Sinek. I get a daily email, and there was a recent one that said, "When in doubt, be yourself." I was like, that's clear. But I think saying that, the road to discovery sometimes of who is that, who are we bringing forward? So I do hear that you are very deeply grounded in your faith, and that's been a real driver for you and a source of comfort and inspiration. And that comes through.
I hope so. I hope so. I think that it's even though I read, I love to read, and I always want to make sure that, like I said, I don't just let anyone speak into my life because I'm responsible for my outcomes. And so I I don't take that lightly. And I think that if I patterned myself after someone else or I mean, I love to read different people like John Maxwell, and they motivate you, but at the same time, you can't be them. You must be yourself and you must pattern your life after the person that you're supposed to be, not someone else. And I think the influences are good. I just think that it's a matter of that authenticity. Just ultimately, you just who you are, be who you are. And that's wonderful.
Yep. And that comes through very clearly. And you're going to, because you are so clear on that, I'm imagining in your life that you're attracting the kinds of people that you really would like to work with and that you will really be able to serve with your whole self, with your authentic self.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I think the clearer we are about that, and that's what's so hard, especially if you're newer, people try to be everything to everybody because they just want to get started in this business. And this business initially has a real time of seed planting. At least usually it does, whatever that time period is. I mean, I've kind of found it's about 2 years if you had to quantify it, but there is an amount of seed planting when you're brand new that happens.
Mhm.
And that's not easy to hold on to a clear vision of who you are. And as you say, who you will allow to speak into who you are and be able to find inspiration in John Maxwell and others, but know that you're going to pull that in and make it your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I can see that real clearly. Is there a quote that you're pondering recently that from something that you do read that kind of helps you and informs you?
I had one the other day. I went to a live surge. I don't know if you know what that
No, I do
is.
not know what that is. What is that?
It had lots of motivational speakers, the Benham brothers, and there were just lots of different people there. Priscilla Shirer was there, and Tim Tebow, and so it was a full day of immersion. You just feel like I can go out and I'm freshened, and I can just like conquer the world again. And one of the funny things that I picked up while I was there, and I think that it rings true with so many people who are entrepreneurial, is that there are 4 Ds. And the first one is doubt. And when you doubt yourself or you doubt your mission or you doubt, what am I supposed to be doing? And am I doing the right things? And the doubt can lead you then to discouragement.
Mm.
And then discouragement, I mean, this is not positive, obviously. If you're discouraged and you're doubting who you are or you're doubting your mission, then you're discouraged. And then you go further to the delays. Like there are times that we know that we need to follow up. And if you're discouraged, you don't really feel like doing the follow-ups, or you just kind of, oh, I'll put it off until I feel like it, or that sort of thing. And I don't think that people realize that it's that daily, like, putting one foot in front of the other. Just do the things that you need to do, whether you really feel like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those things were important just to hear that other people experience those just like we do. There are days whenever I know that I need to make the phone calls and you're busy and you kind of put them off, but you still need to do it and carve out time for those things that are important, not just for your business, but for your family and for the other people around you, because we don't just pour into the lives of our clients. We also need to pour into the lives of those who we can influence. Who am I going to encourage today? Or I don't know what my neighbor's going through, but let's just reach out. They're on my heart. Let's reach out to them and see how they're doing. And so I think that those things are important. There's just got to be that balance for all of us that just makes us all whole. Like it makes us balanced. And it's like that wheel that just gets, if you sit on one side of it for too very long, is going to be flat.
Yeah, yeah. What was the fourth D? Do you remember?
Oh, so we have
Doubt, discouragement.
delay
I was
and
thinking despair. I would
it's
be in despair if that happened.
distraction.
Oh,
Distraction.
distraction. Okay.
Because there are certain times of if you're doubting or you're not focused, the distractions can also create a bump in the road for you. So I think that all of those things together, when you have a little nugget like that, does help you to just remain focused.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a little distracted today, but I need to reel it in and let's call mom. Or I haven't talked to my dad today. Let's call dad, see how he's doing. Or, yes, work is really busy. Call the grandchildren. It's just being
Check in.
purposeful, still
Yeah,
purposeful.
absolutely. And being present, as we were talking about, which was the skill probably so much that you drew from your work in hospice for such a long period of time. Well, I have one final question. This has just been a real precious few minutes for me. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. But I have one final question that I love to ask all of my guests, and that is, what is the best, most uplifting compliment you've received recently, and why was it so uplifting for you?
I had a client that told me that it had been a long time since they'd encountered someone who was brutally honest.
Mm.
And because I was brutally honest, I kept them from making devastating choices. And it made me, at first, I was kind of sad because I was like, that's really sad that I'm the only honest beacon that you've seen for quite some time. Because when you think in terms of our world and how many people that our lives impact. And when they said that, I kind of chuckled because I am, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you the truth. But for somebody to say, you were brutally honest and you saved me, I think that's probably one of the biggest compliments that you can receive. Honesty.
That is amazing and quite beautiful, and something definitely to hold on to. And yeah, again, I'm sorry that they felt that they had not encountered many brutally honest people, but they also said it in a way, I imagine, that they were grateful for your kindness and your great care when you offered that brutal honesty.
Well, I hope that most everybody else that my life is able to touch. I hope that honesty is always there. I know that we're all human. We have feet of clay. You never know that. I mean, I'm not perfect, but at the same time, that honesty, if that can help somebody, it's great to feel like you're in a position that you can impact someone's life and it didn't cost anything. It was just honesty.
Well, that's an amazing compliment. You are an amazing person. What a great interview. Thank you so much for spending this short time with us today. I've learned a lot. I think your comment that you mentioned a few times about being very careful about who speaks into your life is something that will really resonate with me. I think the idea of that and how important it is to be discriminating and to have discernment around that and to seek inspiration. My whole back wall is filled with books that I get from, I'm still a real book that's generational, I think. And I have a Kindle, but I really do love books in my hands and get great inspiration from thought leaders. But the next level of making sure that it's integrated into your life in a way that will allow it to authentically land and not sound like somebody else, I think is a really important thought. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And your heart to serve. I think that as being a beautiful thread that's been woven through this tapestry and will continue to be woven in the tapestry is quite remarkable. So I thank you again for agreeing to be our guest today.
But thank
And
you, Lisa. It's a pleasure.
yeah, I look forward to our paths crossing again for sure. And thank you so much for helping us lift others as we rise. Thank you so much for joining us another episode of Lifting Others as We Rise. I hope you were inspired as much as I was with the conversation that I had with Cyleste this afternoon. She was truly an amazing, amazing realtor who has a servant's heart like someone I haven't seen for a long time. I hope you'll consider and maybe calendar some time to think about, is there a way that you can be more service oriented in your real estate business? Is there a way that you can look at those that you are working with and think about how you could expand not only that sphere, but your service, your value to those people? She talked about the not getting stuck into the 4 Ds: doubt, discontent, discouragement, distraction. Um, there are so many times that we can fall into these traps where we get discouraged and then that distracts us and then that delays us from taking action. How can we reel ourselves back in? And I think by finding and remembering that we are bringing a service to others, that we're serving and not doing that work for anything other than trying to be a supportive partner with our clients and with our families, that it makes all of those 4 Ds kind of dissolve away. And she also, talked about really making sure that we're careful about who speaks into our life. Wasn't that an interesting way, a turn of the phrase, a way to say like, um, find mentors, find inspiration, but then bring it authentically in to your life, into you, and how that will work for you. I just love that. So if you enjoyed today's insights, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback does matter. We are changing things as we go along due to your feedback. Until next episode, keep the positivity flowing. And remember, when we make an effort to lift others up with intention and presence, we all rise together. This is Lisa Parenteau signing off from Lifting Others as We Rise. Take good care.